the Bodhi mind and the 10 virtuous deeds, untying mental knots.
The starting point of this in-depth conversation is a crucial reason for Bodhisattva's aspiration, as mentioned in the Avatamsaka Sutra, to fully comprehend the formation, existence, decay, and emptiness, also known as kalpas, of the world at different stages and their durations. This sounds incredibly grand, but its underlying meaning goes far beyond simple knowledge. The record indicates that this comprehension isn't just about knowing something exists. More importantly, a bodhisattva must have the ability to act on that knowledge. Their role is somewhat like providing essential infrastructure for sentient beings who have not yet achieved enlightenment. Just as you must first lay the foundation, build the columns, and install utilities to construct a house for someone to live in, a bodhisattva understands how a world forms and is sustained, and therefore creates these conditions. This is similar to Amitabha Buddha creating Sukhavati, the land of ultimate bliss, providing an ideal environment for focused cultivation without disturbance. However, the record also frankly points out a harsh reality. Even after bodhisattvas put immense effort into creating a world, sentient beings, because of their deep-seated defilements, are very likely to pollute and even destroy it. Despite knowing this, they continue to create, time and again, because it's part of their aspiration to give sentient beings a space to live and practice. The record vividly describes how sentient beings, burdened by heavy defilements, habitually think only of themselves. This self-centeredness, or each for their own, leads to mutual harm, environmental pollution, and ultimately the destruction of the entire world. This description resonates with many situations in our current reality, truly reflecting the manifestation of fundamental defilements, greed, hatred, and ignorance. When these defilements drive people's actions, the result is endless struggle and contention, turning the living environment into a chaotic mess. The record makes an interesting comparison, mentioning that some so-called primitive tribes, like certain African indigenous groups, take only what they need from natural resources and do not greedily take more. This might align more with the principle of non-greed than many who consider themselves civilized. Most of the animal kingdom is similar. They eat their fill and don't kill aimlessly. This suggests that behaviors common in our human society, like building massive warehouses for food storage just in case or desperately hoarding houses and land, might stem from deeper greed and insecurity. This mindset is fundamentally different from those who take only enough to eat from an animal carcass left by a lion, without thinking of packing everything up. Because of these deep-seated habits, sentient beings easily bring about their own destruction, constantly harming themselves and others. The record also uses the example of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, who works tirelessly to save sentient beings from suffering, yet many turn away and forget the lesson, reverting to their old ways that lead to pain. This also explains why bodhisattvas must constantly build and maintain a good environment. Sentient beings always seem to be causing destruction, intentionally or not. It's like a hole just being mended on one side, only for someone to dig a new one on the other. A bodhisattva's work seems endless and can even be disheartening, as no matter how hard they try, sentient beings often resist advice and cling to old patterns. But this highlights the boundless depth of a bodhisattva's compassion. They understand that this is the nature of sentient beings and know that these old habits are hard to change, yet they choose not to give up. This extraordinary perseverance comes from the very Bodhi mind they first generated the aspiration to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of helping all sentient beings. Next, the conversation shifts to various concepts of equality. For example, a long kalpa and a short kalpa are equal, and a kalpa with a Buddha's appearance is equal to one without. How can we understand this? The equality discussed here can be seen on two levels. First, there's equality in nature. All phenomena, regardless of their differences, pure land or defiled land, long or short duration, are identical in their most fundamental nature emptiness. Second, the law of cause and effect is equal. While pure lands and defiled lands are obviously not equal in their phenomenal appearance, the causes and conditions that create and sustain them, as well as the resulting karmic consequences, all follow the same universal law of causality. It's like planting a melon gets you a melon and planting a bean gets you a bean. The rule of what you sow is what you reap is universally applicable and equal. The record also mentions, in one Buddhakalpa there are innumerable Buddhas. In innumerable Buddhakalpas there is one Buddha. Why is there such a huge difference in the frequency of a Buddha's appearance? This is primarily related to whether the karmic conditions of sentient beings are ripe. The record explains that if beings are universally creating heavy negative karma, a Buddha's appearance might be pointless or even counterproductive. In such a situation, beings might, out of anger or confusion, slander or harm the Buddha, creating even more severe negative karma. Therefore, Buddhas usually choose to appear when the good roots of beings are growing and people's minds are more benevolent. However, Shakyamuni Buddha in our current era seems to be an exception. He achieved Buddhahood during an age when human life expectancy was only about 100 years, a time considered a defiled age of 5 generations. The record states that this is precisely what makes him great. His compassion and vows were extraordinarily strong, enabling him to face beings so difficult to liberate. As for the end of the current Bhadrakalpa, the auspicious eon, why will 1,000 Buddhas appear in succession? It's because when sentient beings have suffered to the extreme, they will begin to reflect and a deep-seated desire to do good and escape suffering will arise, even if they don't know how. At this crucial moment, the power and teachings of a Buddha can be of great use. The record describes an interesting scenario. When beings long for the Dharma but don't know the way, a voice might be heard from the sky guiding them. This can be seen as a manifestation of a Buddha's meritorious power, used to first spark people's attention and curiosity. When this curiosity is sufficiently ignited, a knowledgeable teacher, perhaps a bodhisattva in disguise or another spiritual guide, will appear at the right time to teach them how to practice. This is a progressive and skillful way of liberating beings. Next, the conversation delves into a more abstract concept. A bodhisattva's aspiration is to comprehend, in a single thought, the entire process of formation, existence, decay, and emptiness of all worlds throughout the past, present, and future. This sounds incredibly inconceivable. For someone who has attained the perfect enlightenment of a Buddha, this is not only possible but completely controllable. This is vastly different from our ordinary minds, which jump around like monkeys and are hard to control. But after achieving realization, a bodhisattva's faculty of mind, the activity of thought, is completely well-regulated, allowing them to precisely and effortlessly manifest whatever they wish to know. So, what is the foundation for achieving this level of mental control, even just for calming the mind and focusing? This next part of the record is particularly crucial. The conversation consistently emphasizes the importance of the 10 virtuous deeds, also known as the 10 good karmas. The record points out that if a person fails to perfect the 10 virtuous deeds, not killing, not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, not lying, not using duplicitous speech, not using harsh words, not using frivolous speech, not being greedy, not being hateful, and not being ignorant, it's essentially impossible for them to succeed at anything, whether it's worldly studies, career, or family, let alone the more advanced path of spiritual cultivation. Is there really such a direct link between the 10 virtuous deeds and success? Yes, because one of the direct results of practicing the 10 virtuous deeds is that the 6 senses are well regulated. Our 6 senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, become more obedient and easier to adjust to your will. Conversely, if a person often commits the 10 evil deeds, the result is that their 6 senses become disobedient. In such a state of body and mind, everything becomes difficult and prone to failure, because the fundamental command system, your mind, is chaotic and out of control. Therefore, without the regulation of the 6 senses, it's impossible to even begin the meditation and visualization practices taught in the sutras, as they all require a calm and well-regulated body and mind. The record repeatedly stresses that you must first build a solid foundation with the 10 virtuous deeds, making them a habit to achieve a well-regulated state. Conversation specifically highlights not committing sexual misconduct to illustrate this point. It notes that keeping this precept results in well-regulated senses. Here, the word misconduct has a broad meaning in Buddhism, going beyond just illicit relationships. Its deeper meaning is to be immersed in, unable to let go of, or unwilling to renounce anything that is improper or defiled. This includes being excessively addicted to food, drink, entertainment, sensory stimulation, or even becoming lost in unrealistic, deluded thoughts. If a person's body and mind are constantly steeped in these improper and defiled things, they will develop the bad habit of having a disobedient mind and senses. This is not merely a moral issue but directly impacts whether we can think clearly and control ourselves, and even influences our success in life. The conversation later notes that a bodhisattva's aspiration is not just to know sentient beings, but also to untie them. While knowing is about observing phenomena and understanding a situation, untying is a deeper level, meaning to resolve the root cause of a being's suffering. This requires immeasurable wisdom and methods, because the capacities, defilements, and habits of sentient beings are unlimited and varied, so a single method cannot solve everyone's problems. A profound insight from the record is, a sentient being's understanding is their knot. The way we view, conceptualize, and understand things, what we believe to be our understanding can actually be the knot that binds us and causes our suffering. What's called liberation, then, is simply the process of untying these knots that we've tied ourselves, and stepping out of our self-imposed limitations. The record also mentions that this process often requires the skillful guidance of a Buddha, Bodhisattva, or a spiritual guide. They will try to see things from your perspective and even use your own understanding to help you see where the knot is and what its true nature is, so that you are willing to untie it. All of this reminds us that true growth is an inward transformation, observing, understanding, and finally untying the mental knots that limit our potential and cause us suffering. The foundation for this transformation, as the record repeatedly stresses, lies in our daily cultivation of body and mind, particularly by upholding the simple yet crucial ethical standard of the 10 virtuous deeds. This not only determines our progress on the spiritual path, but also directly influences whether our lives are smooth and happy. Finally, we want to leave you with a question to continue this discussion and encourage deeper reflection. The record mentions that sentient beings often cling to their knots and are unwilling to let others touch them. So, deep within your own mind, are there any fixed ideas, beliefs, or habitual patterns, your knots that you may not yet be clearly aware of but are clinging to? And are these knots unconsciously limiting your potential for greater growth and inner freedom?